I swear every time Sony has a win of any sort, they are very quick to immediately follow it up with a potential loss. I have been a very patient boy waiting for 28 years later. 28 Days Later is still to this day my favorite zombie film ever made. I love what Danny Boyle was able to create on a low budget and making a whole new turn to the zombie genre. Alex Garland's script is fantastic. The entire story is filled with extreme fear, extreme terror, realistic human characters, and a fantastic ending, which admittedly was a bit soured by 28 Weeks Later. I know that there are people who enjoy that movie, but me personally, I do not enjoy it. I like it up until the infection starts, and then the film just falls into this absolute pit of stupidity with characters becoming complete morons, huge plot contrivances, and Robert Carlyle's zombie essentially becoming a supervillain. But through all of that, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for 28 years later. This is something that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland have been talking about for years. And so when we finally saw that there was an announcement coming, I was very, very excited. And when we saw the newest trailer, we can see from the numbers, there are a lot of people excited. So why did Sony think it was a great idea to make a sequel and to use Nia DaCosta as the director? Now, this isn't a shot at her. This is a shot at what she has made previous. I know that everyone dumped on the Marvels. I can't speak to that movie. I've never seen it. But she was behind the Candyman remake, and I thought that that was going to be good, and I was very disappointed by that movie, as were a lot of other people. So the fact that she's getting a movie like this is just screaming to me that we are going to get another 28 Weeks Later. This is clearly Danny Boyle's baby. This is something that he has done. Now, admittedly, I am assuming that 28 years later will be good. I am hopeful. It does look very good. I am admittedly going on a hope. Whereas with 28 years later, part 2, The Bone Temple, aside from having a kind of very childish name, I can't have any faith in this. It's going to come out in January, which unfortunately, very much to the degree of other films that are released in January, it's usually a shit week. So that's not great. You've got 28 Years Later coming out in a prime summer blockbuster month. And then you have the sequel coming out in the shit bin month. Admittedly, there's a lot of back and forth information and some admittedly confusing details about this. People are kind of being confused thinking that this is what the new 28 Years Later movie is when it's not, to the point where it is actually getting messed up in CEO searches. That's how weird this announcement is. So again, it's just Sony being Sony being absolute dipshits when it comes to stuff like this. The only thing we know is that it's directed by Nia DaCosta and the screenplay is by Alex Garland. Producers are going to be Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, Andrew McDonald, who was a producer on the original film, Peter Rice, and Bernard Beaulieu, and Cillian Murphy is also going to be executive producing. That is all we know. The announcement, again, is very strange. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I do have a feeling that they're trying to slide it in to see how people react to it. And of course, in typical Sony fashion, they have done a terrible job at it. I can't have any future sight into how this movie will be. I'm just saying that with Nia DaCosta directing, I am admittedly a bit skeptical. I have not seen Little Woods, which is her first major picture, which apparently had some pretty decent reviews. She also did a series for Netflix called Top Boy. She did a few episodes for that. All I can say is the best thing that I've ever seen her do was the Candyman short, which absolutely outshone the craptitude that was the actual movie. I've not seen Marvels, but there's some interviews with her that do not exactly look good for her because it sounds like they hired her as a diversity hire than actually to be a director, because there was a ton of stuff that was being done, filmed with the Marvels where she wasn't even there. And I have to admit, that's probably not very nice. That's not very fun to be hired by a studio to direct a movie. You're not really there to be the director. You're there because they want to say that they hired you to be the director. But then again, she might have learned things from Candyman. She might have learned things from the Marvels. We will see. Again, I'm kind of curious about this. Apparently, it's already been filmed from the notes here. They filmed these two back to back, so I don't know. All I can say is it's Sony, so I'm not exactly hyped. I am hyped for 28 Years Later, but I'm not very hyped for this one. I am very, very cautious. But those are my thoughts. Curious to see what you guys have to say. Did you guys even know about this? Were you guys initially confused like I was? Let me know in the comments below. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. Also, just on another note, Which one do you like better, 28 days later or 28 weeks later? I'm not going to judge, but I might judge a little bit.